Hello again. Are you waiting for spring? I definitely do. And today's theme is the Spring Witch. It is a coloring page made by me. I painted lines in Procreate, printed it on recycled paper and painted it with gouache. So let's begin. So the first phase is the Procreate drawing and I made it with the ink brush from the Inked Up set. I mentioned this set before. I will leave the link to it in description. It is free to use set. Very cool. The main theme is the witch, which is flying on the cherry blossom branch in a moony night, and also she waits for spring, I suppose. Although her clothes are more spring-like, so probably she is very hot-blooded. I colored this line art in Procreate, but I wasn't very happy with the results, probably because it looked too digital, and I always wanted to check how an illustration would look in a different medias, but you know, if you would like to check all possibilities, probably you had to paint only one illustration over and over. But I thought that I have a printer, the new printer, maybe it's time to use it not only for printing agreements for clients, but for a coloring page. I am very into gouache and watercolor, so I thought that it would be interesting to paint it with paints instead of color pencils. My printer is a common ink printer, so printed lines aren't waterproof. That's why I chose the light gray version, where the lines are very light, and printed it on the quick mode. So the printer uses very small amount of an ink, so the possibility that they will get blurred when I apply water on it is smaller. I used creamy recycled paper. It isn't an art paper, so you can't find it in art shop, unfortunately. It is the leftover after my father's printing house, and I use it mainly for gouache. And this paper was perfect for the job because I tried to dilute lines, printed lines with water, and nothing happened. The lines are still there, not a bit of blur. But I also tried watercolor papers. To be specific, it was Canson Montval 217 grams, and I think it was hot press, and I printed the light version on it. So I think that the light gray version on a watercolor paper also should work. I also checked another coloring page printed on watercolor paper and painted with watercolor, and it also worked. It will be probably the theme of my next video. We will see. But getting back to the point. I paint with gouache about 3 years now, but earlier I was a fan of watercolors and I still am. So the watercolor process was very natural to me, and when I paint with gouache, I also use them in a watercolor way when I'm not feeling very secure at the beginning. And this is the first phase of painting. I called it transparent phase because I use the gouache as watercolors here. So with a lot of water with diluted pigments. It creates an underpainting layer and makes me feel secure with my color choices. I can check how they look on paper and decide if I want them that way or I want to change it. Because gouaches are opaque, it means that if I will use the thicker layer of paint, I will cover my underpainting. So definitely it is the smaller risk that something will go wrong compared to watercolors. The transparent layers of gouaches aren't so easy to activate with water like the thick ones, so if I succeed to paint correctly the face in transparent face, I leave it that way, and it is what I did in this case. Because with thicker layers it is very easy to mess up what you done by far. But on the other hand, you can improve it over and over because gouache are still ready to activate until you cover it with a varnish or a fixative. But it's better to avoid too thick layers because the paint can crack and no one wants that, obviously. So we are now in opaque phase, and I know that I want to have a milk turquoise night sky, a bit darker clouds and pastel lilac cherry blossoms. I wanted the character to stand out from the background, that's why the darkest colors and the only warm color is used on the character. To avoid too vivid colors in the background, I mixed my paints with a bit of warm gray. It also makes that all background colors match better with each other. I used here only round synthetic brushes. I use them also in watercolor paintings, but they are a bit stiffer than my natural Bristol hairbrushes, and thanks to that it is easier to spread creamy paint. And gouache tricked me as always, because when they are drying they can change their colors, so I was sure that I picked wrong colors because when they were wet they looked too dull or too dark. But when they dried everything looked just as I planned, so hooray! After all, I also used color pencils. It were watercolor pencils. I used them to draw details and they worked very well on gouache, usually. But this time they not done so well on this recycled paper, and when I press my watercolor pencil too much, they can cause chips of paint off. I didn't have this problem before on other papers, just on this one. So here's my final result. If you want to see more video painting process, just let me know in the comments. Or maybe you want to try to color it by yourself with crayons, color pencils, watercolors, gouache, digitally. Surprise me. The Spring Witch watercolor page is available on my Etsy shop in 3 color versions: black and white, light gray and sepia. And if you want to try my other coloring page, Summer River, for free, I'm inviting you to sign up my newsletter, especially that there will be more free coloring pages for my subscribers. All links are in the description, and this is all for today. See you later.